and welcome back to the final episode of Drive Safer Season 2. My name is Kris Smith, and in this hour-long episode, we are heading out of town. I drive with Kevin Flynn from Driver Dynamics through the rural roads, finding out the challenges drivers face around the countryside. I sit down with Professor Newstead from Monash University to talk about driver behaviour. But first, let's hop in a four-wheel drive with our mate Tim to learn how to tow.
Last week, we talked about safely towing a small boat. And this week, we've got every Australian's dream, a full-size caravan. Behind the Prado Altitude, we have an 18-foot new age adventurer. But before we get on the road, let's talk some jargon and numbers. Understanding weights and your limitations and doing some basic pre-departure checks can take the stress out of towing. It can be safe, it can be simple. Now this Prado and New Age Adventurer combo, it's a brilliant match, ready to tour Australia and see the best of what this country has to offer. When towing a heavier trailer like this, smooth inputs make all the difference. The Prado's 48-volt V-Active Assist gives a little electric boost as you pull away. It's subtle, but it helps the 2.8-litre diesel get the van moving without strain. Every tow setup is limited by weight. Most commonly, it's GCM or gross combined mass, but sometimes it's GVM because the tow ball mass is transferred to the towing vehicle. Now, a quick refresher on some of the acronyms. ATM or aggregate trailer mass, that is the maximum allowable weight of a trailer unhitched from a tow vehicle. GVM is the vehicle's maximum weight when it's fully loaded, detached again. And then GCM, that's the two vehicles combined, the car and the trailer. And tow ball mass, that is what the tow ball pushes down onto the back of the vehicle. So our combination, the New Age, its ATM is a little over 3,300 kilos, and the vehicle's GVM is 3,100 kilos. So combined, they fit comfortably under the combined mass limit of 6,600 kilos. But remember, the ball weight transfers from the caravan into the back of the Prado, and at about 230 kilos, it leaves 350 kilos of payload remaining in the Prado for passengers and gear. So it is a legal combination that is well balanced. So with the Prado's 150 kilowatts of power and 500 Newton meters of torque, it should do well on the open road. But before we get there, there are some pre-departure checks you should all do. Before hitting the road, run through your checks. Make sure all hatches, windows and vents are safely latched. Your gas bottles are closed and secure. Your breakaway is connected correctly and not dragging on the ground. Make sure your chains are crossed and your shackles are rated, and check your tyres are at the right pressure and your wheel nuts are torqued to spec. And mirrors, please use them and extend them so you can see along the full side of the van. And inside, make sure cupboards are latched, the fridge door's closed, and any loose gear is tied down. It's all basic stuff, but forgetting one can ruin a trip fast. When I first set off, I like to press the override on the trailer brake controller just to make sure everything's powered up. I'll then adjust my gain, and then once I'm at freeway speeds, I'll adjust it again. And what I'm looking for is I want the trailer to brake assertively. I want to feel it on the car just enough that so when I know if I have to brake in an emergency, the trailer will pull in behind the car. So for a trailer like we've got today, I'll likely set it around 6 or 7. If your vehicle has a tow haul mode like this Prado does, turn it on. It'll use lower gears when climbing and hold gears when going downhill to offer you some engine braking. Keep a steady throttle position and maintain longer distances between you and vehicles in front, and anticipate having to brake. You could be traveling with up to 6 tons. A little tip I like is to note down how tall my trailer is on a sticker on the inside of my windscreen. That way, when I see low bridges and overpasses, I know if I'll pass safely. When towing a large van, you could consume as much as 25 or even 40% more fuel. Luckily for us, we have a 110-litre fuel tank in the Prado.
Now, Kevin, you've been in this industry since the 80s, and you've trained so many people on both metro and rural roads. Last episode, we spoke about the challenges that you face on metro roads, but let's switch this one to the rural roads. Is it the same problem for rural drivers as it is metro, or is it completely different?
There's a lot of stuff that's the same, but there's other stuff that's completely different, and I'll cover something first. People are under the misconception that city drivers are more likely to get killed in the country. It's not true. Country drivers are more likely to get killed in the country, on country roads, than drivers from the city. The challenges we face on country roads are, number one, we're travelling at higher speeds potentially over longer periods of time. We've got different kinds of hardware on the side of the road. Sometimes there's no barriers and lots of trees to hit and things like that. The types of road we're driving on are different as well. For example, when we have a road with what we call a split surface, where you'll have a normal roadway with some gravel edges on it, and you might be surprised to learn, or maybe not surprised to learn, almost a quarter of rural area fatalities begin with the driver dropping two wheels off onto the gravel. That's a different and delicate situation to cope with, and we'll look at that. But other things such as fatigue over long periods of time, and overtaking on dual highways, etc., etc. There's different set of challenges on the highway or in rural high-speed roads to what there is in the city.
And do you take a different approach in teaching somebody to drive on that condition? What would you do differently in terms of the courses that you offer for metro and rural?
So for rural drivers, and we often will go to regional areas and run specific courses in regional areas. For example, companies that have drivers working on wind farms and so forth will go to regional areas and run training courses for them. So we look at gravel, which is not something that city drivers are typically driving on. We look at overtaking on those types of highways. We do higher speed emergency stops, and we look at the tricky split surface situation where you've got two wheels on the bitumen and two wheels on the gravel. Very tricky and delicate situation.
Now, you use the phrase drive to the conditions.
Yep.
Would you say in rural that's even more enhanced than anywhere else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. As I said, we've got distance over long periods of time. We've got a different type of road surface. And one thing I forgot, which you don't have when you're typically driving in the suburbs, wildlife, kangaroos and so forth. And the way you react to wildlife in front of you is also very important as well.
What should you do in a situation like that?
Hit the brakes.
Hit the brakes.
Number one, hit the brakes. Yeah.
Never swerve?
Slow the car down as much as you possibly can. The amount of people who have ended up in the trees, off, upside down, on fire, because they've tried to avoid Skippy at highway speed, yeah, you'd be staggered. It's such a common situation. Number one, hit the brakes. Number two, I'm sorry, Skippy, but we're probably going to go over the top of you. Yeah.
Safety should not be out of reach. And with a 5-star ANCAP rated Toyota Hilux and Ollie, it isn't. With an Ollie novated lease, you can bring a Toyota Hilux home for as low as $378 in weekly payments. And with a novated lease, Ollie can help bundle eligible running costs into your weekly payment, which could help you save come tax time, meaning you could save up to $15,000. It's a smarter way to finance your safety. To find out more about how an Ollie novated lease could help get you behind the wheel, head to ollie.com.au to discover what awaits you. That's at ollie.com.au.
Well, Daniel, here we are with the two larger cars from Toyota, the SUV section. We've got the RAV4 over here, but let's start off, as we always do, with the big boy, the Toyota Land Cruiser Prado Altitude.
It's a bit of an icon in Australia, isn't it? Prado. It's much loved by Australians for very good reasons. There's almost too much to talk about this car, but I'm going to try and get into the important stuff. Right, first of all, this is a big four-wheel drive. It's designed to take on the entirety of Australia, and it does that very nicely. Because of that, it has some safety features that are very specific to the off-road and towing world. Where to start? So towing. This vehicle can tow up to 3.5 tons with a brake trailer, so it's up there with the industry standard and competes with a lot of other things. That is a lot of car and a lot of towing capability. Key to this though is it actually has a gross combination mass, which is everything together, as 6.6 tons. So it's actually a really, really decent hauler. Now, those aren't just figures on paper. It actually has a lot of technology to help you deal with that, including something called a tow haul mode. Now, when you've got a trailer hooked up behind this car, it'll actually know about it, and it will keep those gears in slightly higher ratios to allow you to use the engine braking to control that load up behind the car. So you don't have to resort to electronics, you don't have to use the actual brakes on the trailer or the car. You use that clever technology to sense the trailer there. Really, really good feature. It's also got trailer sway control. So if you've got a big caravan or something on the back, you're on the freeway and it starts to get a little bit of a wobble on, we've all been in that position.
Well, we've seen those.
And we've seen it on the freeway. This actually has a vehicle stability system that will actually sense that happening and use the various brakes around the car to control that wobble and bring it back under control. It's also very good off-road. It's a genuine off-roader. It's got a 2.8 litre turbo diesel under the bonnet, a proper four-wheel drive with a reduction box in there. So it is a genuine 4x4. You can go anywhere with it, but it's got loads of safety to look after you. One of the things it has, which is very good, has a driver monitoring camera. So if you are on the road or off-road and you're starting to get a little bit drowsy or distracted, this thing will tell you about it. So it's watching the driver all the time, and if it notices eye movements, it notices where you're looking, can even sense how drowsy you are through the steering wheel and your inputs, and it will give you a warning to make sure you're paying attention the whole time. So heaps of technology.
So this does way more than just look the part, it walks the talk too.
100%. You've also got all the things that you'll find in Toyota's safety suite, such as that forward-facing pre-collision technology. So it's got autonomous emergency braking. The same technology will also give this adaptive cruise control. So you've got all of the safety systems, but plus a whole suite that's specific for off-road and towing. So a really, really great car if you intend to go and see the whole of Australia. But if you don't necessarily want to use all of that off-road capability, you've got another option.
Yeah, this is the Toyota RAV4. This is a hybrid edition, so way away from the 2.8 litre diesel that's in this one. This is going to give you great fuel efficiency. Am I right?
You are 100% right. So this is Toyota's hybrid system, as you say. It's got a 2.5 litre petrol engine under the bonnet, bolted to an electrical system as well. And its main focus is fuel efficiency. The other reason this gets to be a little bit more fuel efficient is because it is the two-wheel drive version. You can have a four-wheel drive version, which in my experience is very good off-road if you want to do that kind of thing. But if you're more focused on suburbia and more day-to-day duties, you can have a front-wheel drive version like this. And it's a little bit more efficient and it doesn't have quite the hardcore off-road capability of the Prado. Nonetheless, it has plenty of safety features. So we still have that forward-facing camera up here for pre-collision. It also gets the adaptive cruise control, also gets AEB, autonomous emergency braking, and it can detect the most vulnerable road users, such as cyclists and pedestrians. It also has lane departure and lane keep assistance. So if you're in a lane, it can see the lines of the lane with that camera up there, and it can assist you by either giving you a warning when you're going to start wandering out of the lane, or it can even assist with the steering if you don't do anything about those warnings. So heaps of safety in both cars.
So if you was looking for a first or maybe a second family car, this is perfect.
Absolutely. And if you want to stay on the sealed surface, this is the one for you. But if you want to go the trail less beaten, then the Prado's the one for you.
Looking to finance and make the leap to a full electric vehicle? Check out the BYD Sea Lion 7. With a novated lease from Ollie, you could potentially save thousands in tax over the life of the lease. See, with an Ollie novated lease, the team will take care of everything involved in leasing your new car. That's purchase, registration, eligible running costs, even charging with an electric vehicle, and wrap it into a neat little package with a one simple payment that comes out of your salary. Meaning a BYD Sea Lion 7 could cost as little as $192 a week. So start your journey today. Head to ollie.com.au.
Right, Kev, rural driving, what is your advice for scanning the road? Because a lot of rural roads are only one lane, aren't they?
Yes.
So how far ahead should you scan?
So ideally, you should have your vision 2 to 3 seconds in front of yourself, and that's pretty easy to do when we're doing 60 Ks. When we're doing 80, 90, 100 Ks, you've got your vision a long way down the road. So I'll remind you, head up, vision up, and look where you want to go. Now that might sound pretty obvious, look where you want to go, but there's a difference between looking where you want to go and where your car's headed sometimes. So yeah, keep your vision to where you want to go. I did notice earlier on where we had the road surface and the gravel and a lack of a white line. So to delineate the side of the road. So very easy to make a small error and find yourself with 2 wheels on the gravel, 2 wheels on the normal road surface. And then we've got our car in a fairly delicate situation there.
And when it comes to overtaking on rural roads, because, you know, we've got levels of confidence when driving in this situation. Some people live in the area and drive it on a daily basis, and other people are doing it for the first time. So there's going to be that backup of traffic. And, you know, as Australians, is not really happy about sitting in traffic a lot of the time. We want to speed past. What are your thoughts on overtaking on the broken lines?
The first thing I'll say about overtaking on these dual highways like this is, number one, ask yourself, this is going to sound very un-Australian, ask yourself, is it absolutely necessary that you make the overtaking manoeuvre? And the second thing you need to do is take in your entire environment. It's not just what's happening up in front of you, it's what's beside you and behind you as well.
Now, the absolute no-no would be overtaking on a blind corner, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Absolute no-no. If you can't see how far in front, because given the fact that some of the highest speeds that we have in Australia are on country rural roads.
Yep.
So how do you maintain? Are you advised to do those speed limits, or would you be a little bit better to drop slightly below them?
I've got a poem for you, Chris.
Oh, a poem.
A poem. Just remember this little saying: never overtake on a crest or a hill. If the police don't get you, the undertaker will.
Oh. Now, one of the big things about driving through rural Australia is the length of some of it, which means you could be behind the wheel for quite some time, which involves one of the greatest killers, fatigue.
Yep.
How do we manage that?
I have to say first up, with the research that we've done, we believe it's a contributing factor in up to 1/3 of fatals. There's more fatigue-related crashes during the day than there is at night. And that comes down to simple mathematics. There's more cars on the road during the day than what there is at night. But people will lead you to believe that fatigue is something that's exclusive to you driving in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the night. And this is not necessarily true. Although it's a factor, it's not necessarily true that this is when it always happens. So we need to have a break every couple of hours, and a real break, unless we're swapping drivers, of course. We shouldn't be driving at times where we're normally asleep. You will get there. It might take you a little bit longer, but you will get there. So
it's worth it. So what I've learned driving with Kev on rural roads is, one, take your time. That's first and foremost. Take your time, enjoy your surroundings, slow it down a little bit. There's going to be elements within driving in rural Australia that can challenge you like no other place can. So be ready for that, be aware of that, and be fully alert. And that does include resting when you need to rest. Also, overtaking on blind corners, do not do it. Give yourself a good viewing point as far in front as you can possibly get, because things come at you pretty quick.
Let's repeat the poem,
Australia. The poem, don't you? Never overtake on a crest or a hill, because if the police don't get you, the undertaker will. There you go. How's that for a memory? Rural driving with Kev. We're joined again by Professor Newstead. And Professor, I've got a question for you. Touchy subject, road rage. What kind of studies have your centre dove into about the elements of road rage and why they happen?
There's been quite a lot of studies, not just by us, but by people internationally, because road rage and our attitude to driving on the road is an international issue. It's not just an Australian problem, it's everyone's problem. And in the surveys, about 92% of people say that they've seen road rage and experienced road rage. So it's a very high proportion of people have come across this. Interesting, the surveys that have been done also show that from 2012 to 2019, there's something like a 75% increase in the incidence of observed road rage. The pandemic, I think, has only made that worse because people became very insular, being cooped up at home, and now they've come back to sharing the road with other people. That's actually been exacerbated because this is really an issue about sharing our roads with the rest of the population. Road rage is about getting frustrated with other people's behaviour, either people doing things that they perceive as dangerous, like, oh, shouldn't be doing that, or doing things that frustrate them, like driving slowly in front of them for no apparent reason or in the wrong lane. And people get very frustrated with that. So 92% of people would say, yes, I've seen that happen and that really annoys me. So the question now is, well, what do you do about that? And it's a really difficult task because a lot of dealing with it, there's not a lot of legislation and enforcement that really happens around it, and people are quite aware of that. And a lot of it to address is about changing your attitude to driving. So at the centre here, we've been developing a program we're calling Reduce Angry Driving, or the RAD program. And it's actually an online course which talks about the things that happen when you get angry that create that risk and how to try and avoid them through personal strategies. And they can be things like, firstly, plan your trip. Make sure you've got enough time to get where you need to go. Interestingly, the afternoon peak, where all the tradies are going home and all the school parents are trying to go to pick up their kids from school, is actually the most dangerous time of the day now, a real peak between about 2:30 and 5 o'clock in road trauma. And a lot of that is probably around this anger and aggression type issues. I'm late to pick up the kids, I need to get there, and I'll drive accordingly. And everyone needs to get out of my way.
I found the most competitive driving I've ever encountered is school drop-off and pick-up.
Yeah.
It's very, very angry. That's the biggest road rage I've ever seen. But my next question was, do you think the road rage is coming from the younger generation, or are people just growing in to be aggressive on the road?
It's interesting. I think the most angry generation or age groups are the 25 to 55s, because it comes back to what we were talking about, the pressures of life you have then. You've got kids at school you need to pick up, you've got a career you're developing, you need to be at work on time. All those things add up to create a lot of pressure in life, which makes you more tense and angry. So it's actually not the youngest necessarily, it's that middle age group who suffer the most time pressure and hence the most impatience and anger on the road.
What's that?
This is what we call a split surface. So effectively what we've got is a slippery surface on the left-hand side wheels of the car and a wet road surface, your normal road surface, on the right-hand side of the car. So an example of that, you could be driving along a rural road where you've got a normal road surface and gravel off to the side. And what I'm going to put us in a situation where we're on the split surface. Left-hand side wheels don't have as much grip on the road as the right-hand side do. And then we're going to try and do an emergency stop. We're not going to be going fast, suburban speed, 60 Ks.
Okay.
So we'll see how the non-ABS car performs in this situation.
Okay.
This is probably the best demonstration of ABS.
Right.
So only 60.
Yeah.
Suddenly we have to stop.
Oh!
So it's actually lots of fun. In a controlled environment like this.
Yeah.
But if you put yourself into this situation on the road, we're now going broadside down the road. We could cross over onto the wrong side of the road. We can, in our case, we've actually gone right off the left-hand side of the road because a non-ABS car on a split surface, if you hit the brakes as hard as you can like we just did, the car lacks stability. So typically it will spin towards the side with more grip, which in this case is it will do a rotation to the right. So here we are, Chris.
Yep.
I thought I'd pick something big and allegedly cumbersome this time, because people think, you know, big four-wheel drive, it's really going to struggle with this sort of stuff, but modern car, modern ABS system with modern ABS tuning. So I'm going to change things up slightly, exactly the same surface, exactly the same distance and everything, but with this one, we'll do 70 instead.
Ooh.
So we'll go 10 Ks faster, and we'll see how we go.
There's a little bit of confidence there, I like this.
So the big benefit of ABS, as I said, will stop you quickly, it will give you steering response, and importantly, it will stabilise the car, and I'll show you what I mean.
No.
So you can feel we're wobbling around a little bit there because it's working its little backside off to keep us straight. But effectively, steering was pretty easy for me to do. The car carried on a bit when the ABS went through its cycle, but we stopped pretty much perfectly straight.
You could feel like a slight kind of wobble this way, that way, but the correction was instant.
Yep.
Instant.
This is the most dramatic demonstration of how good ABS is over non-ABS cars. We've gone from potentially off the road into the trees or crashing into a vehicle coming the other way to come into a stop in our lane on the left-hand side.
Going
of the road.
faster.
Going 10 k's faster, yeah.
Now, Kevin, we've looked at metro roads, we've looked at rural roads, but there's something in episode 1 that you said that really got me going. You said there's so much that we can learn from learner drivers. What do you mean by that?
So we can actually learn a lot from learners. Learner drivers are the least likely drivers on the road in Australia to be involved in a casualty crash. And you have to ask yourself, what do learners do that the rest of us aren't? They're not speeding, they're not drunk, they're not on drugs, they're wearing their seatbelt, they're not falling asleep, and they're not mucking around on their phones. So if you look at the crash rate for learners versus everybody else, there's your answer.
Now, as a driver trainer yourself, what is the approach that you would take to teach a learner driver? What would you install in them?
Number 1's vision skills. Make no mistake, where you look is where you go. So we always say, get your head up, get your vision up, and look as far up the road as you can. And make no mistake, vision controls all the other inputs in the car. So really work on your vision skills. The other thing I'll say for parents, it's a long road, so yeah, be patient. If you don't really know a lot about driving, do as much research as you possibly can, and when all else fails, pay an instructor.
Now, what about when we teach learner drivers? Because we're in sunny Melbourne at the moment, but it's not always like that. The elements are very different each and every time.
Yep.
How do you teach a driver about that?
Let them drive. That's what we say, just let them drive. If it's cold, let them drive. If it's dark, let them drive. If it's raining, let them drive. If it's sunny, let them drive. A funny thing that often happens to us on driving courses, because we have learners on our defensive and advanced driving courses, we'll have them turn up to do a course with us and the parent's driving. And we say, oh, how come you're not driving this morning, Johnny, or whatever? And he'll say, oh, we were in a hurry. It's like, oh, okay, so your parents could speed, but you couldn't. As I said, the more time they spend behind the wheel, the better it is for everyone.
And what I found from season 1 is that you never have any understanding of your car's capability until you're either 1, done a course like this, or 2, forced into that horrible predicament out on the road.
What I have to say, when they get the horrible predicament out on the road, they only get one go at it, they generally get it wrong. Here, we'll give you multiple goes at it, and we'll give you a whole bunch of tips on getting it right. You'll knock over a cone or 6 throughout the day, but learning out on the road in the hard way, a little bit more expensive in the long run.
Now, the statistic that surprised me was how safe learner drivers were. That was quite incredible.
Yep.
Is there a statistic that really surprised you? You thought it might be a different way around?
Our research, we've looked at males versus females, driver-only fatalities, and our research, are you ready? So who do you think is more likely to be involved in a fatality as a driver, a male or a female?
I would guess female.
No, it's male. But do you know how much more likely a male is likely to be involved in a fatality? It's about 280 to 290% more likely males. So we've done a lot of research in this area, and we know that males are, as drivers, you can look at statistics that will, for the broad spectrum, that will tell you otherwise, pedestrians, cyclists, so forth. But we focus on driver only. A male is much more likely to die as a driver than a female is. I tell you guys, we need to have a good look at all of ourselves, and we need to do better, because the girls are massively outperforming us when it comes to staying alive.
Looking to finance your next car? Maybe you want something like the Hyundai Kona Electric. Well, with an Ollie novated lease, it could be a reality. Get started at ollie.com.au to begin your journey. Once you've selected your car and spoken to the team, Ollie will do the rest. After discussing your situation, Ollie will help bring your financing down to one simple payment, including some eligible running costs, meaning the Hyundai Kona Electric could cost as low as $208 a week. And it's easy to track through the Ollie app. So discover the possibilities. Head to ollie.com.au to find out more.
Now, Daniel, what I've found is a lot of the time, the condition of your tyres are somewhat overlooked, especially when it comes to the terms of safety. I mean, how many people even know what their tyre pressure should be?
Probably not enough that should. First of all, where to find the tyre pressure? Like, it's actually, you may not even know what they need to be, but let alone actually correcting them and keeping an eye on them. So inside the fuel filler cap or inside the driver's door, you'll find a placard, and that will tell you all the pressures your tyres need to be, and most of the good ones will tell you the different conditions as well. So if the car's loaded up, luggage and people, or just general day-to-day use. So find the pressure, and then generally you should be checking them about once a week, but it's all dependent on circumstances.
That seems quite regular, once a week.
Absolutely, and I guarantee most people would never do that. It's one of those things that just slip your mind. If it's unrealistic to check once a week, then do it as frequently as you possibly can. Best advice is, if you're going to go on a long trip or you're going to put some particularly heavy use to the car, that's when to check your pressures.
Now, that's quite interesting you look for your tyre pressure that regularly. Even I didn't know that. But what about when your tyre is getting too old? Can it get too old?
Yeah, 100%. So, interestingly, tyres will age whether they're being used or not. So even if a tyre has never even turned a single revolution, it is getting old just on the car. Things that accelerate that are the good old Australian environment. So heat, sun, ultraviolet will all age a tyre quicker than if it's kept in a cool, dark environment. Believe it or not, the material that bowling balls used to be made from is called ebonite, and that's exactly what happens to rubber if you let it completely age. It goes, all those cross-linked molecules finish cross-linking thanks to ultraviolet light, sunlight and heat, and they become extremely hard. I mean, you would not want a tyre made out of the same material as a bowling ball. It wouldn't make a very good tyre at all. So you need to make sure those tyres are looked after well and also not aging too much. And there's a way you can tell actually how old your tyre is. You don't have to ask it the personal question of how old are you. That would just be impersonal and rude. If you look at the sidewall of a tyre, you will find a little stamp that looks like this. It looks like a meaningless kind of serial number or something. It actually isn't. It's really helpful. 4 digits. This one says 0922. That means this tyre was made in the 9th week of 2022. So it's actually not that old, but it is getting on, even though it is brand spanking new. So you can tell how old your tyres are, and if they are getting too old, swap them. Even if they've got plenty of tread left on them, if they're getting too old, get rid of them.
Now, I've noticed a collection of tyres next to you right there.
Yes, the Hall of Fame over here.
They didn't go unnoticed. What are they all for? We've got this one, which is the brand new tyre.
Sure, brand spanking new, lots of tread, no damage at all. That's what you want on your tyre. But obviously tyres wear over time, and they can start to do all kinds of things. Now, this is a good example of a tyre that is worn unevenly. It gives me a couple of things I can show you. The first thing I want you to look at is the wear is not even. It's not uniform across the entire tyre's width. You can see here you've still got some tyre tread left. If I measured that, that's probably going to be getting close to legal, if not slightly under the 1.5 millimetres in places. But if you look towards me, it becomes thinner and thinner. But the most important thing about this is it hasn't worn evenly. And that can be for many different reasons. First of all, your wheel alignment is out. So if the tyres are pointing in different directions, they will naturally scrub more on the leading face of the tread than on the trailing face. So tyre alignment, wheel alignment can cause that, but also tyre pressures. We talked about tyre pressures at the start of this chat. If you make sure that tyre is correctly pressured, it's less likely to wear unevenly. Tyres that are overinflated will naturally wear in the middle early, and those that are underinflated will wear on the shoulders more. So this is a good example of one of the sins that can happen to tyres when they're not well looked after or the vehicle geometry is out a little bit. Next, now this is at the very aggressive end of tyre wear. This one is completely gone right across. You can see all the wear indicators are flush with the tread there. It is absolutely spent and was probably a long time ago, it has to be said. But this one is also showing how it gets even worse. So the way a tyre is made is actually layers of different materials. The outside layer is where all the grip happens, that's where the sticky rubber is, but beneath those layers you have the bands and the plies, so they're made of steel and Kevlar and other bits and pieces, and if you really, really wear a tyre and ask a lot of it, you will start to expose those bands, and that's what's happened here. You can start to see those sub-layers of the structure. The carcass of the tyre is showing through, so this one is long gone. There is no future for this one whatsoever.
And last but not least, you brought a tyre from your e-bicycle.
No,
That's very nice.
I have not. This is not a bicycle or a motorbike tyre, although I can see why you mistook it for that. This is the type of tyre that we talk about a lot, but very rarely see. This is a spare wheel or spare tyre, okay? And spare tyres in cars used to be like all the other tyres on the car. Full sides, full width, and often they were the same wheel as well. But increasingly, manufacturers are resorting to either space-saver wheels or, the worst case, no spare at all. But what this is I think, is probably the best compromise. So you can still get full-size spare wheels on a lot of vehicles, particularly off-road vehicles, because if you get a puncture out in the middle of nowhere, you really do want a proper size tyre to go in its replacement. But this is what's called a space saver. It offers you, I think, probably the best balance because you get a real tyre that you can roll on and to get to safety or to get to a puncture repair place and then get the real tyre back on again. But it doesn't take up too much space in the boot and it's also a little bit lighter as well. So you're not burning fuel carrying around something that you don't really need a lot of the time.
Professor Newstead, thank you once again for your time. This is the final episode, sadly, so what I'd like to do now is look forward. And I want to ask you, do we think that the government and car manufacturers and drivers are doing enough to stop the national road toll rising in 2026? We've seen numbers so high recently that we don't want to see continue to increase.
Absolutely not. And I think the problem for the community is that, as I've talked about, our travel is growing with our population at the same rate. And if we want our road toll to go down, we can't just maintain the level of risk in the system. We need to be reducing it radically to compensate for that growth in travel. And that's a new conversation for society. It's not about doing what we've been doing, it's about doing things a lot more differently. One of the failings we see at the moment in our system and where the principal risk resides is an incompatibility between our vehicles, our road environments, and the way we're allowed to use them. So we have to have a conversation about what should that look like. And in Australia, we've been very poor at that. If you go to the average European city, cars are not encouraged, and when they are allowed, they travel at very low speeds. The concept of having blanket urban 50-kilometre-an-hour speed limits on all roads, not just our local roads, is something that's very foreign in Australia, but standard in Europe. If you go in a city, a big city like London, 30 km/h speed limits anywhere, we think that's a travesty, that we can't do that. Yet we know if we run over a pedestrian at more than 30 kilometres an hour, their risk of being seriously hurt or killed is very high. So we have to think, what does our system need to look like to maintain our mobility, but do that in a way that embeds safety into it? So we need to think about what speed limits look like around our urban environments and how our roads are designed. Same token, where a lot of our risk is now coming is our rural road network. You've got really low quality roads, no shoulders, no barriers, gum trees, and we're driving along at 100 km an hour. When people make a legitimate mistake in those environments, they die. And that's why we're seeing massive growth in trauma as people are exposed more to travel in those environments and they make mistakes, and they will make mistakes. We can't avoid that.
Do you think there's an argument for adjusted speed limits given various times of the day, like we see in school zones? Throughout that time, it's only 40 kilometres an hour as opposed to 60. Do you think there would be a relative argument for that?
Absolutely, and particularly for urban freeway networks, that would be a really fantastic thing to be able to do. And we know in places like Europe and the UK, they have properly managed motorways, variable speed limits, monitoring, so they can alter the speed to suit the conditions. People often refer to, in Germany we have unlimited autobahns where you can drive as fast as they like. Yeah, we can if the conditions are good, but as soon as the conditions deteriorate, you're down to 40.
Yeah.
And we need to have that same sort of adaptability here to make sure whenever we're using a road at any time that what we're doing on that road conforms with the environment that we've created for that road.
Well, sadly, Professor, this is the end of our series. But if you could give your viewers a closing message, what would it be? Right down your camera there.
There is still significant risk on the road. You need to do everything you can as an individual and to encourage government to do better in this space, and we can do a lot better in safety, but it requires us all to work together and to consider each other in that process to make sure collectively we're safer on our roads.
Professor Newstead, thank you so much for your time. Wonderful, wonderful points. Well, sadly, this is the final episode, but before we let you go, I've brought Kevin and Daniel back for a few final questions. Kevin, first off, I see the Melbourne weather's got the best of you. Your hoodie's on today. Daniel, couples dressing. I like that.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful.
Yes, corduroy shirt all the way today.
I love this, I love this. So, gentlemen, do you think that we need a bit of a shake-up here in Australia on how you can attain a driving licence?
I feel like you and I might differ on our opinions on this one, Kev.
I think so.
Maybe I should let you go first on this one. I don't know.
Obviously, I'm going to say a little bit of extra training is definitely not going to hurt. And obviously learn as much as you possibly can. Go and do a driving course, you'll get a lot from it. But at the end of the day, it's really important to remember that Australians are being killed on the roads doing stuff they already know they shouldn't be doing. So if we can just remember, don't drink and drive, put your seatbelt on, put your phone away, don't fall asleep while you're driving, pay attention, you'll be surprised the outcome from that.
Okay.
And the argument sounds like...
Well, obviously, I can't disagree with that now, because that would make me sound like the most irresponsible road user on the planet. But what I will add to that is I feel that we would all benefit from a defensive driving element of the training and the test itself. My real big problem with the way we're trained to drive on the roads at the moment is the first time you encounter a difficult situation is for real. You're out there in the wild. If people got used to what an ABS brake feels like, what a slide feels like, when it happens to them on the road, for real, they're not scared by it, they don't panic. I think that's something we would really, really benefit from in the testing system.
And what do you feel about maybe an enhancement of licenses coming from overseas? I'm included in this. I come from the UK, I show my license, I get the Australian license without any training having to gone through for how to drive over here. And some people come from and they drive on the other side of the road from other countries. And they just come, they show that license, they get an Australian one. Should there be a course or even a test to ensure you get your Australian license that you fit for that?
I think there's certainly room for that, absolutely. And not just, driving on the opposite side of the road. We all know that Australia presents some unique driving conditions. The weather, the state of the roads, there's things about Australia that you won't find anywhere else in the world. And I think that could all be really well rolled into the test here as well.
Because we've spoken about metro and rural roads and how they differ to a large majority of the world.
Yeah, other countries where the driving environment in Australia is definitely different to what it is in other countries. Yes, so yeah, I'm on board with that 100%.
I mean, the thing is, nobody likes to be called a bad driver, but it happens. Do you think it's time that we kind of stand back and take a look at our own driving as individuals?
Okay,
I'm not calling you a bad driver. I look right at you,
I know
then,
there's
Daniel.
plenty of evidence to suggest I absolutely am. I think driving, and this is contentious, maybe people will want to disagree with this. I don't think there's anything hard about driving. Getting into a car and actually driving a car, half decent job of it, is not a difficult thing to do. And in fact, on previous episodes of Drive Safer, we've actually put kids in cars and said 10 minutes down the road and they're actually doing a decent job. Driving a car is not a difficult thing to do. What is difficult is getting people to change their attitude. That's where I think we're going wrong, is people's attitude when they get behind the wheel is all wrong. Their nature, the way they react to other drivers, the way they take their own responsibility is all wrong. We need to change the way people think about driving, not necessarily changing their skills behind the wheel.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much. Your knowledge has been invaluable. We have learned so much throughout this whole series. Unfortunately, that is the end of Drive Safer Season 2. If you want to find out any more about anything you've seen right throughout the series, head over to drive.com.au. Until next time, I am Kris Smith, and please, let's keep each other safe on the road.
Thinking about buying your next car? Or make your first move a smart one and head to drive.com.au. You'll find thousands of new and quality used cars for sale, all in one location. Our Drive-built intelligence highlights the cars that are a great price today, so you don't miss out on a deal. Drive, the smarter way to find and buy your next car, all in one place. Find it, buy it, drive it at drive.com.au.